Hello and welcome back to the Courtroom Advocate channel. Today I want us to bust some myths that surround child abuse. There are so many myths that surround child abuse, and some of those are hindrances to observing when child are being abused, or that is what many people cannot realize it abuse because of the many myths. So today we are going to bust them and look what are the facts about those things. So to start us off, the first myth: it's only abuse if it's violent. That is not a fact. That is a myth. Some of the abuses are very gentle and they are very loving actually, and do not even realize it. So for most of the children, actually, for the people who abuse them, those who are abused by those who are close to them, they are abused in a very loving manner and actually as a way of grooming them for further abuse. So it is not true that it's only abuse if it's violent. Any other abuse that's not violent is still abuse. The second myth: only bad people abuse their children. That is not true. And I know when we say bad is a relative word, but of course we expect that that rough person, that drunkard, you know, I don't know what other word describes a bad person, that they are the only ones who can abuse their children. You know, we are looking for that very abusive person. No. Actually, some of the people we think are the best people, or they are good people, in quotes, are the ones that abuse children. That very humble man, that very gentleman, that very loving father, mother could be abusing their children, you know. That very nice teacher could be abusing the children. So there is no way of physically telling of an abuser. So you cannot observe a person and say that one is a child abuser. No, actually everybody, remember in one of the videos we said everyone is a suspect. The other myth is that child abuse does not happen in good families. Good families in quote, because actually a lot of abuse is happening behind the very high tall walls, you know, and some of the families that we think are really good family, or those children that we think, wow, those kids are so disciplined, they're so well behaved, and so on. Child abuse can happen in any family. Whether you consider it a good family or a bad family, child abuse could be happening in that family. Most children, the next is that most children are abused by strangers. No. In my stories, if you watch the other videos, it's clear that actually most abuse happens by those who are very, very close to children. Those people who they trust, those people who are interacting with the children. And this is because most of the time they have maybe observed a need in the family, they observed a child is not receiving attention or care, so they are offering it, and in the process abusing them. Maybe it's somebody who have observed your pattern. They know that your child comes home and they're in the house alone for quite some time before you come home. So most of the time it's not a stranger, it's that person, it is that gate man, it's that, you know, house help, you know. Actually most of the boys tell stories that their first sexual encounter is with their house help. So it is not a stranger that will just come in. I know there are few instances, you know, where maybe a child is picked on the road by a total stranger and is abused, but most of the time it's that very person you trust, it's that person that you know, and that person who actually knows the child. So there's always, so the starting point for them is very easy because they are already known to this child. So it is a myth that children are only abused by strangers. They are actually abused by those very close to them. It's also a myth that abuse only happens in some parts of the society. Abuse happens in every part of the society. Just like we said, it happens in every home, it happens in every part of the society. So we cannot say because we live in this part of the society our children cannot abuse, and so on and so forth. Abuse happens in every part of the society. Children, the other myth is that children usually tell when they're abused. That is a myth. I think most people, and we keep on talking that we are a broken society and treat people nicely because you don't know what childhood trauma they're going through. Yes, it's true, because most children are not telling when they're abused. So most children will not tell when there is abuse. They will keep it under the rugs, and mostly it's because there is no conducive environment for them to report abuse. So most of the children are not telling when they are abused. The next one is that the next myth is that only men abuse children. That is not true. Abuse is being perpetrated by both men and women. And as I said previously, for boys, actually, the people who are abusing them are the house help. That is where most of the kids are getting their first sexual relationship or sexual interaction with. They're abused by house helps who are mostly women. And also now we have seen quite a number of women in court and in prison for child defilement. So it is happening. It's not only men, even women are abusing children. The other myth is that boys are less traumatized by child abuse. That is not true. Trauma is trauma, and the same trauma girls go through is the same trauma a boy will go through. So let's not minimize boys' trauma, or let's not minimize boys' experiences and saying you're a boy, you can handle this. And actually most of the boys are thorough. Even when we're in school, I know most boys are beaten harder, or more than girls, and it's a feeling that boys are harder and so on. That is a myth, and it's a way of actually perpetrating abuse against boys. So it is, boys do not experience any less trauma than girls when they're abused. The trauma is the same. The next one is that many children lie about being abused. Research has shown that only 2% of reported cases by children are a lie. All the others are true. So when a child tells you they're abused, please believe them. We said in the other video about reporting that any child who comes to you reporting abuse, your first duty or your first response should be to believe that child. What they have said, believe them. So it is a myth that children lie about being abused. Only a very small part, actually only very few children lie about being abused, and those who lie, actually they are adults behind that lie. So children are not just born to come and tell lies about abuse. So it's a lie that children lie. So it's for you to believe your child if they come and tell you they are abused. The other myth is that the most common form of abuse is sexual abuse. That is a myth. Actually, the most common form of abuse is child neglect. Child neglect is where you're not taking your responsibility as a parent to ensure that your child has all they require as a child to grow up and to develop into a child. So this could be, not providing for them. It could be, you're not providing for them. Either they're not even going to school and you're not bothered. They're not having a balanced meal. That is a form of child abuse. And also like leaving them. So one of the things I've seen when in my visits to prison is that most of the people who are in prison for most of the women who are in prison, they are in for child neglect. But I found very few men in prison for child neglect. In another video, we'll look at why that is the case. But yes, the most common form of abuse is child neglect. You not taking the necessary care of your child. The other myth is that children with disability are less likely to be abused. That is a myth. Research has shown that children with disability are 2 times more likely to be abused than children without disability. So if you have a child with a disability, please take care of them because they are more exposed, and especially if they are not communicative, there's that assumption that they are not be able to tell their story in court. So most people will abuse them thinking they'll get away with it. On a different video, we'll look at child abuse of disabled children living with disability, and how you can help them tell their stories in court, and how you can protect them further. The last myth we are looking at is that abused children always grow to be abusers. That is a myth. As long as your child, if you learn about your child being abused, and they go through the necessary therapy, they go through the necessary healing process, they are not liable for abusing any other child in the future. Actually, it's just shown that most of the abused persons do not abuse, maybe because of the trauma they have gone through themselves. They are not out to pass on the trauma. So it is a myth. Though, as we saw in one of the other videos when we said, where do children learn how to abuse, it's because most of them abuse, and so they will try to abuse other children. But generally, it is not the case that it is a must that an abused child will end up being an abuser. So now you know the facts. Observe and report any child abuse that you come across. Thank you.